Hello, my name is Antonio Pappano and I'm the music director of the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden. And this is House to House, ROH, the Royal Opera House, to your house, or in this case, my house to your house. I'm sitting in my music room and thinking about an aria that I have a very special affection for. And that's from the Act 1 of Gaetano Donizetti's opera, Lucia di Lammermoor. And it was premiered in 1835 in Naples and is a prime example of what we call a bel canto opera. Opera celebrating the prowess of the great singers, their virtuosity, but also their expressive communicativity. And this is something that is, on the one hand, you have a very, very showy display of vocal prowess, but on the other, you have this incredibly atmospheric and emotive relationship with the audience. Beautiful melodies written for the voice by people who really knew how to write for the voice. Now, the story is relatively simple. Lucia Ashton, is in love with Edgardo of Ravenswood. The problem being that the Ashton family and the Ravenswood family have had bad blood between them for centuries. And so this is a no-go, and she's under a lot of pressure from her brother Enrico to marry a person called Arturo Bucklaw. And she is having none of this, and therefore the conflict, and therefore we have an opera about this. But she's a girl of, shall we say, dubious mental stability. And her music is extremely impulsive, erratic even, I would say. And this is the first example of this. It's a very, very strange aria because it's quite gloomy. She says, in the deep, dark night, there was a terrible silence. She's describing an event that happened a few nights ago and she's describing this to her maid. She says the fountain was caught by a gloomy ray of light from the moon when she heard a moan, a deep moan. And there, on the edge of the fountain, she saw the shadow. Ah, she says. Let me show you how Donizetti has set this. It sounds quite corny, but when I just described it in words, but with music, starting with an arching theme and a rumbling timpani. An unusual crescendo going to silence. The clarinet intones this arpeggiated figure, which is typical of the bel canto accompaniments, but with the viola sustaining and with these tense pizzicatos, plucked strings. Lum. The dark night, she describes. Listen to the bass notes. The orchestra answers. Now we hear about the light on the fountain. There the flute echoes the color of the moon, obviously. Now she talks about the moan that she heard. And listen to the music gain in intensity. Becomes quite impulsive, and then she says, ed ecco su quel margine. She says, at the edge of the fountain, I saw the shadow. L'ombra mostrarsi a me. Ah! That's the famous ah. So that's the first section of the aria. And did you hear how the tempo became more and more impulsive. Now it goes to the major, to F major. She describes the scene again as if to speak. I saw the lips move of this shadow, and with the deadly hand, it seemed to call to me. I was frozen, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. So it's very Gothic, all this, isn't it? Did you hear that almost trembling? Now that she talks about the hand, we get very strange dissonances there. It seemed to call to me. The music speeds up. And then it disappeared. And then in the most beautiful music, but she says something awful. The water of the fountain, formerly so clear and limpid, turns blood red. And she trills. Now her maid Alisa is, stop these thoughts, these terrible thoughts, etc., etc. And in between section, and then she says, and then she talks about, but she talks about Edgardo, and he takes me away from all these terrible thoughts, these nightmares that I have. He is my light, egli è luce to my days, ai giorni miei, e conforto. He's the comfort of my day. Usually the sopranos go up to a high note here. Conforto al mio penar. He's the balm for my suffering. And we get... Now, in the second part of any bel canto opera aria, we will always have a section that is slightly more moving. But again, it's not silly, kind of mechanical type of... No, it's beautifully... There are those trills again. The trills depicting her shakiness, if you like, her very, yes, unstable character, actually. Remember, the bel canto operas always have a mad scene, and this opera has a mad scene later that is, well, it has the mad scene of all mad scenes, in fact, and you should look that up. But here she's caught up in the ecstasy of this most burning love that speaks from the heart and has sworn eternal faith to her. So somehow this music is quite reassuring. Quando rapito in estasi. Again the trill, listen. The burning love. The trill again. I love that in the orchestra. Listen. He's sworn eternal faith. Ecstasy. now there has to be a bridge passage, and Donizetti comes up with something harmonically so gorgeous. I forget my worries, she says, that tears become joy. And now we get to the part where the singer displays their virtuosity, and we have this, what we call the coloratura, which means coloring, but it's basically ornamenting. The voice ornaments. And you see all these scales, these roulades, and these little stretches, creating a wonderful sensuality, as well as creating the, if you like, a kind of circus atmosphere in the theater. Of course, then we have some more worry music from the maid. Says, we've got to get out of here. This is going to lead to bad things, this relationship. And she sings, of course, the second verse. Now, in all of these arias, the second verse needs to be personalized, and each singer would come up with different ways of embellishing the melody. And some of the most famous embellishments are these. Oh, I forgot. No, there's one here. Here. To that bridge passage. This is one of my favorite ones. Listen. Instead of, but and then now listen to this. Now, I'm not saying that this is the most tasteful way of doing these, but these are examples of what has been done. If you listen to Joan Sutherland, Maria Callas, etc. I'll play that again. Going to high D there, and then high C. Big finish that repeats, and then we get the typical ending. Usually crowned by a high note. The better the note, the longer it usually is. So from dark to light, what a wonderful journey that is. Bravo Donizetti.